Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another Historical Humans Reacts. And on today's episode, we are looking way back on the family tree. We are looking back to a family member that most people don't even recognize. It's that weird uncle, the Denisovans, and it's proven that they inhabited Taiwan thanks to new fossil evidence, which, thankfully for us, we have a beautiful picture here of the jaw.
Yeah. Yeah. Some fishermen managed to extract a jaw, and unlike a Sicilian fisherman doing this, it was not immediately assumed to have been a murder.
Hey, what do you mean? Hey.
I can make that joke. I'm Italian.
uh, but Sicily's not Italy. Yeah.
And that's
Anyways, this
another
is
word.
a really cool example of a proto-human that was found off the coast of Taiwan. And the interesting thing in my mind is we talk about how the sea levels have changed. Well, Taiwan has had easier land access in the past. So the fact that human remains are being found, or proto-human remains are being found in the waters off the coast, is really impressive. Or it could also potentially mean that it had eroded out of a nearby cliff or probably a cave, realistically.
Yeah, water is a surprisingly corrosive force, especially when it is repeatedly batted against stone for several thousand years.
It is the corrosive material. More than any acid, more than any wash. Water is forever.
Yep. As they said in an episode of Doctor Who, water always wins.
Exactly. And this is a really interesting one because the species was originally named and basically discovered during excavations in Siberia in the Denisova cave in 2012, and they found out that the Denisovans lived from 300,000 to 50,000 years ago, meaning that they were contemporaneous with both Neanderthals and modern humans. So there were three different ape species walking around pretending to be humans.
Yep. Yep. Now, it is believed that they may have actually done something that humans did, which was um, become intimate with the Neanderthals, which is a very fun thing that's not talked about a lot outside of like the initial shock value factor of just the fact that there were mixed communities of Neanderthal and human and Denisovan that were just going around on on the earth.
It's such a fascinating thing to talk about because we've obviously known evolutionarily that we share mixed DNA with other species. It's been known that most Europeans share about 5% of their DNA with Neanderthals. But the fact that we're starting to find other hominid species that we also crossbred with, it just poses such a unique and interesting thought process in my mind because what the hell? Like, were they able to intercommunicate? And that's obviously a big question. So, like, was it a consensual interbreeding? Was it something done out of convenience, out of ease, by force? It's just
Yeah,
it's a very interesting connection, and the fact that we have humans, which East Asians are the ones found with this Denisovan DNA in them.
yeah. And what I always wonder with this, like I know it's not what the point of the article is, but um with like Denisovans being able to mate with Neanderthals, Neanderthals being able to mate with humans. I wonder if it was a complete circle where like each of the different species were just compatible enough that they could produce offspring with each other, or if it was like there's a lizard in California, I believe, where it can mate with lizards of the adjacent populated species, north and south, but not species that are one further removed. And it makes this nice little chain of interconnectivity and hybridization.
It's also interesting too because there are more than one species out there that lose their ability to mate if they go too far away from their own species. I think of mules as probably a great example of that.
Yeah.
But this species is very interesting because It was originally found by commercial fishermen, and then somehow, I can't imagine how this would happen, it ended up in a nearby antique shop, and then another Chinese man bought the fossil in 2008 and eventually donated it to his country's National Museum of Natural Science, where obviously the scientists began researching it. And originally they dubbed it Pengu 1, and it was classified as an unknown hominid species. So they knew, hey, this probably ain't human, but
Yeah,
they didn't really know what it was at that time.
yeah. And one of the things with Pengu One here, Newt everybody, if you're that old, you know.
Oh God,
Yeah, oh God, I can be cringeworthy too, thank you.
that's my
Uh,
job.
yeah, yeah. One of the things that makes Pengu One so interesting is all attempts to date the fossil have come back with inconclusive results. We've figured out that it's Denisovan through comparative study and a lot of slow, painstaking effort as the scientific community as a whole. But we still don't know when it's from. We finally figured out what it is, but we have no idea where in that massive 250,000 year history it comes from.
And that can be one of the side effects to things that have been submerged underwater for a very, very long time. Because a lot of times when there is a lot of water, organic materials don't have the same decomposition rates as other things. It's oftentimes referred to as the reservoir effect and can actually throw off a lot of carbon dating. And to be honest, with something this old, guess what? Carbon dating really doesn't work beyond probably 100,000 years, and even at that, the standard deviations are a couple of thousand years.
Yeah, yeah. Carbon dating would probably be at most able to confirm if this was early or late Denisovan rather than anything else. And we can't even get that off it because it's just been so washed by the ocean.
Which is what's very interesting too is they were also able to identify it not only by the proteins but because of the actual dentition of this jaw piece, where they saw that it had four cheek teeth and a partial canine tooth, and that it fits in studies with other Denisovans, and they actually did a comparative analysis with another jaw that was found on the Tibetan plateau in Jahi, China, Jahe, which is honestly really cool for two reasons. One, it shows that the Denisovans had made their way this far east and had really populated over a wide spread. But two, it really goes to show you just how you're able to actually identify these remains. And it's something that we don't talk about very often, but a lot of times we identify new human species or new species of like Australopithecus just by going, hey, this one just doesn't quite fit. It
And
just doesn't quite feel right. And you notice with a lot of these older species too, is they tend to be very similar characteristics or very identifiable features.
and
Jaws,
and one
skulls.
and one thing speaking to that is there is some debate as to whether or not this fossil and the two Tibetan plateau Denisovan fossils that have been used as its base point comparison are in fact Denisovan. The Institute of Vertebrate Paleontology and Paleoanthropology in Beijing believes those three fossils represent a new species, which they have dubbed Homo juliensis. And so it is entirely possible that this could be a representation of four hominid species coexisting at the same time. But again, that is unconfirmed and in the realm of scientific inquiry and debate. That's not been, the dust has not settled on that.
But even the Chinese fossils date between 200,000 and
Yeah.
105,000 years ago. So they are really old.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there are points where you do make good arguments for what would be the the effective establishment of a new species, or sometimes you get certain. Sometimes people try to come up with new species just to make their name, make their claim. God, I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, but there was a really famous case of the quote unquote missing link skeleton that was found that was a hodgepodge of different ape and human bones.
Yeah. I think there's a good example from paleontology of not sort of rushing into classification. I believe it's the Brachiosaurus and the Apatosaurus are now understood to have in fact been the same species. Just people, people went ahead and proclaimed them two separate ones because it was two different people that found the specimens.
The example I'm thinking of is known as Piltdown Man.
Oh, Piltdown Man.
Yeah, which was a hoax that pursued in the scientific community for about 30 to 40 years in the early 20th century.
Yeah.
So, very interesting, but it's cool. I like when we discover newer examples of these fringe hominids because humans, we have a lot of family. The whole world is effectively our family. And in reality, our family branch has a couple more branches than we originally thought.
Yeah. This one just happens to be named Dennis.
Denisovan, after the cave in Russia. He's a
Denisovan.
Denisovan.
It's Dennis. It
Oh,
spells Dennis. We have named them Dennis.
oh. Well, I think that's probably a good point for us to wrap up today's video. Let us know what you think of Dennis, and we'll see you guys in the next video.